There is a trade on her screen that she should have closed 40 minutes ago. She knows this. Some quiet, rational part of her brain has known it since the moment the candle closed below the level. The setup had failed. The thesis was wrong. The stop-loss, the number she had written in her journal before the session, the number she had promised herself she would respect, was right there, waiting, doing exactly the job she had assigned it. And yet her hand has not moved. Her name is Sarah. She is 31 years old. She has been trading Forex for 2 years, evenings and weekends mostly, fitting it around a job she is trying to eventually leave. She is not reckless. She is not impulsive in the rest of her life. She is, by any reasonable measure, a disciplined, thoughtful person. But right now, in this moment, with this trade open and bleeding, she is frozen. Because closing the trade means making the loss real. Right now, while the position is still open, there is still a chance. Price could reverse. The market could come back. It has happened before. She has watched trades go deep into the red and claw their way back to break even, sometimes even to profit. It has happened. So she waits and watches, and the loss grows. By the time she finally closes the trade, not by choice, but because her broker's margin call does it for her, she has lost not the 2% she had planned to risk. She has lost 11% of her account in a single trade because she could not do one thing. She could not cut the loss. If you have traded for any length of time, you know exactly what Sarah felt in those 40 minutes. That paralysis, that irrational, overwhelming hope that the market will come back and save you from having to make the decision yourself. That silent negotiation with the chart, just a little further, just a few more pips, just give me back to break even and I will close it, I promise. It is one of the most universal experiences in trading, and it is one of the most destructive. Today, I want to show you why it happens, not at the level of trading strategy, but at the level of human psychology and ancient philosophy. And I want to show you the exact method that the Stoics developed to overcome it, because they faced a version of this same problem, and what they built to deal with it is as applicable to a losing trade in the Forex market as it was to the chaos of the ancient world. Let's begin. Section 2. Why cutting losses feels impossible. To understand why Sarah froze, we need to go back further than trading. We need to go back to how the human brain is wired and why it was wired that way. In 1979, 2 psychologists named Daniel Kahneman and Amos Tversky published a paper that would eventually win the Nobel Prize in economics. They called it prospect theory. And what it proved, rigorously, mathematically, across hundreds of experiments, is something that every trader already knows instinctively, but has probably never seen quantified. Losing something feels approximately twice as painful as gaining the same thing feels good. Read that again. The pain of losing $100 is roughly twice the intensity of the pleasure of gaining $100. This is not a personality flaw. This is not weakness. This is a fundamental feature of human psychology, baked in by millions of years of evolution, because for most of human history, losses were genuinely more dangerous than equivalent gains. Losing your food supply was catastrophic. Missing an opportunity to find more food was unfortunate, but survivable. The brain learned at a deep structural level to treat losses as emergencies. Now, take that ancient wiring and put it in front of a trading screen. When Sarah's trade goes into the red, her brain does not process it as a financial event. It processes it as a threat, a loss, something that must be recovered, avoided, or denied. And the most immediately available way to deny a loss is to refuse to close the trade, because the moment you close it, the loss becomes real, permanent, undeniable. While the trade is still open, the loss exists only as a possibility, a number on a screen, something that could still change. This is the psychological trap that swallows traders whole. It has a name in behavioral finance. It's called the disposition effect, the tendency to hold losing positions too long and close winning positions too quickly.
It's been documented across stock markets, Forex markets, futures markets, and virtually every other tradable asset class on the planet. It is not a mistake that beginners make and experts have solved. Studies of professional fund managers show the same bias. Studies of experienced retail traders show it even stronger. The disposition effect is not a skill gap, it is a human gap. It is the place where our evolutionary programming collides directly with the mathematical reality of trading, which is that small losses taken quickly are the foundation of long-term profitability, and that hope is not a trading strategy. So the question becomes, if this is wired into us at such a deep level, if even professionals struggle with it, how do you actually change it? And here is where the Stoics enter the conversation, because the Stoics were not psychologists. They didn't have access to Kahneman and Tversky's research, but they were brilliant, lifelong students of human behavior, and they identified this exact pattern of avoidance and denial almost 2,000 years before modern psychology gave it a name. They just called it a different name. They called it false judgment.
Marcus Aurelius, emperor of Rome, commander of armies, and the most powerful man in the world for nearly 20 years, wrote something in his private journal that has always struck me as one of the most honest and psychologically precise statements ever put to paper. If you are distressed by anything external, the pain is not due to the thing itself, but to your own estimate of it, and this you have the power to revoke at any moment. Your own estimate of it. The Stoics believed that the source of almost all human suffering was not events themselves, but the judgments we attach to events, the meanings we assign to them, the stories we tell ourselves about what they mean for us. A losing trade in absolute terms is a neutral event. It is a number, a series of price movements in a market that has no awareness of your existence. It carries no inherent meaning about your intelligence, your worth, your future, or your ability to succeed. But Sarah does not see it that way, and neither do most traders. Sarah sees the losing trade, and her brain immediately begins layering meaning onto it. This means I was wrong. This means I am not good at this. This means I might not be cut out for trading. This means I am losing money I cannot afford to lose. This means I need to fix it before I can close it, because closing it means admitting all of those things. None of those meanings are in the trade. They are in Sarah's estimate of the trade. They are the judgments she is adding on top of a simple price movement. The Stoic philosopher Epictetus, who began his life as a slave and had every reason to be consumed by bitterness and suffering, taught his students a practice he called the dichotomy of control. It is perhaps the most foundational concept in all of Stoic philosophy. The dichotomy of control states that everything in your experience can be divided into two categories: things that are within your control, your thoughts, your judgments, your decisions, your responses, and things that are outside your control, everything else, the market, other people, the weather, your past trades, the news. Epictetus said human suffering comes almost entirely from one source: trying to control things that are not within your control and neglecting the things that are. Now, apply that directly to the losing trade. Sarah cannot control whether the trade recovers. She cannot control what the market does next. She cannot control whether price returns to her entry. None of those things are within her power. What is within her power? The decision to close the trade. The decision to take the planned loss, the decision to protect what remains of her account for the next setup. Everything she is focused on, the hope of recovery, the market reversing, the trade coming back, is outside her control. Everything she is avoiding, the decision to close, is inside her control. And this is exactly backwards from where her attention needs to be. The Stoics called this misplacement of attention the root of false judgment, and they had a specific practice for correcting it, a technique that I believe is the single most powerful tool a trader can have in their psychological toolkit. They called it the view from above. Section 4. The view from above. Marcus Aurelius used this practice throughout his reign, and he described it several times in the pages of Meditations. The idea is simple but profound.
When you are overwhelmed by an event, when something feels enormous and catastrophic and paralyzing, you deliberately zoom out. You mentally step back, further and further, until the event is seen in its true proportional context. Marcus would do this with the problems of empire, a military crisis, a political betrayal, a personal loss. He would mentally zoom out until he saw himself from above, a small figure in Rome, Rome itself a small city in a vast empire, the empire a small moment in the vast sweep of history. His problems, which felt enormous and urgent and world-defining, shrinking to their actual size against the backdrop of time and space. He wrote, "Confine yourself to the present, not as a dismissal of what was real, but as a correction of perspective, a way of seeing things as they actually were, not as their emotions had inflated them to be." Now, apply the view from above to Sarah's losing trade. Sarah is staring at a position that is down. Let's say it's down $200. In this moment, those $200 feel enormous. They feel like evidence of failure. They feel like a threat to her account, her goals, her dream of trading full-time. Now, zoom out. $200 is one trade in what will be, if she stays in this game long enough, thousands of trades over a trading career. Every professional trader who has ever existed has lost money on individual trades. Not some of them, all of them. 100% of profitable traders have losing trades. It is not a sign that something went wrong. It's proof that the system is working, because a system that never loses is a system that never takes risk, and a system that never takes risk cannot make money. Zoom out further. This trade at 2% of her account cannot end her trading career. It cannot erase her knowledge. It cannot take away her ability to analyze a chart, manage her risk, or execute the next setup. The only thing that can end her trading career, the only thing, is if she refuses to cut this loss and lets it grow until it does real, irreversible damage to her account. The thing she is afraid of, the loss, is survivable. The thing she is doing to avoid it, holding, hoping, waiting, is what creates the version of events she actually fears. Zoom out one more time. In 20 years, Sarah will not remember this trade. She will not remember the entry price, the pair, the date, or the number. She will either remember this period of her trading life as the time she learned to cut losses cleanly and built the foundation of a profitable career, or she will remember it as the time she couldn't do the hard thing and her account slowly bled to zero. The trade itself is irrelevant. The decision is everything. Marcus Aurelius wrote, "Never esteem anything of advantage to you that will make you break your word or lose your self-respect." The stop-loss is your word to yourself. Breaking it, holding past it, hoping past it, rationalizing past it, is the moment you lose your self-respect as a trader, not because of the money, because of what it tells you about your relationship with your own rules. The view from above is not pessimism, it's not detachment or coldness. It is the practice of seeing things as they are, not larger, not smaller, not filtered through the emotional urgency of the present moment, just as they are. And when you can see the losing trade as it actually is, a small, manageable, utterly survivable event in a long trading career, cutting it becomes not just possible, but obvious.
There is one more Stoic concept I want to give you today, because the view from above helps you see the loss clearly, but there is a deeper practice that goes further, that transforms the relationship with loss entirely. The Stoics called it Amor Fati. It's a Latin phrase that translates as love of fate, or more precisely, love of what is. Amor Fati is not passive acceptance. It is not resignation. It is not the trader who says, "Oh well, I lost, nothing I can do." That is indifference. That is giving up. Amor Fati is something much more powerful. It is the active, deliberate choice to embrace what has happened, not despite the fact that it is difficult, but because difficulty is the material from which growth is made. The Stoic philosopher Nietzsche, who came much later but drew deeply from Stoic thought, described Amor Fati this way: not merely to bear what is necessary, but to love it. What does that mean for trading?
It means this: the losing trade is not an interruption to your trading career. It is your trading career. Losses are not the obstacle on the path to profitability. They are the path. Every loss taken cleanly at the stop, executed according to plan, is a deposit in the account of your trading psychology. It is proof that you can do the hard thing, that you can follow your rules when your emotions are screaming at you to do otherwise. The trader who cuts losses cleanly is not a trader who feels nothing. Sarah, when she finally closes that trade, will feel the sting of it. She will feel the disappointment. She will feel the frustration of having been wrong. Those feelings are real and they are appropriate, and the Stoics never said you should not feel them. What Amor Fati says is this: feel the loss fully, acknowledge it, and then love it. Not for the money it cost you, but for what it proves about you. That you are a trader who respects their stop-loss, a trader who takes the planned loss instead of the unplanned catastrophe, a trader who is building the one thing that all profitable traders share: the ability to be consistently wrong in small ways so that you can be right in large ones. Marcus Aurelius, who lost children, lost battles, lost friends to betrayal, and watched a plague kill millions of his people, wrote these words near the end of his life: "Accept the things to which fate binds you, and love the people with whom fate brings you together, and do so with all your heart." Accept the things to which fate binds you. The loss is real. The stop was hit. The trade is closed. Accept it completely, without negotiation, without lingering in the what-ifs. And then turn your attention entirely to what comes next, because that is where the game is won. Not in the trade that just closed, in the next one, and the one after that, and the slow, unglamorous accumulation of correct decisions made in difficult moments over months and years. That is what Amor Fati looks like in practice. Not a trader who feels no pain, a trader who feels the pain, honors it, learns from it, and moves forward without carrying it into the next decision. Section 6. 3 practices to cut losses without hesitation. Everything I've described so far is philosophy, and philosophy without practice is just beautiful words. So let me give you 3 specific, concrete things you can do, starting with your very next trade, to build the ability to cut losses cleanly. Practice 1. Set the stop before the trade. This sounds obvious, but there's a crucial distinction that most traders miss. Setting the stop means more than entering a number into your platform. It means making the decision, fully and finally, before the trade opens, that if price reaches that level, you're wrong. The thesis has failed, the setup has not played out, and you will close the position without further deliberation. The Stoics would call this a pre-commitment. You are making the decision in a calm, rational state before the emotion of a live trade has any influence over your judgment. You are in effect binding your future emotional self to the wisdom of your present rational self. The rule is simple. The stop is not a suggestion. It is a contract, written before the market opens, honored without exception when the market tests it. Write it in your journal. Write the entry, write the stop, write the target, and write this sentence: "If price reaches my stop, the trade is closed. No review, no reconsideration, no hope. Closed." This single practice, done consistently, will change your trading more than any strategy adjustment you will ever make. Practice 2. The voluntary discomfort exercise. The Stoics had a practice they called voluntary discomfort. The idea was to deliberately expose yourself to small, manageable hardships, cold water, missed meals, uncomfortable silence, not as punishment, but as training, to prove to yourself repeatedly that you can endure difficulty without being destroyed by it. For traders, the equivalent is this: practice taking losses on purpose in a demo account or with very small position sizes, not because the setup for bad, but specifically to practice the act of closing a losing trade cleanly. Enter a trade, set a stop. When the stop is hit, close it immediately. No hesitation, no review. Just close it, note it in your journal, and move on. Do this 10 times, 20 times, until the act of closing a losing trade at your stop becomes not a painful, emotionally loaded event, but a mechanical, practiced, almost automatic response. Epictetus taught his students to train for adversity before adversity arrived. Seek not that the things which happen should happen as you wish, but wish the things which happen to be as they are, and you will have a tranquil flow of life. You cannot wait until a live trade is going against you to practice cutting it. By then, the emotion is already running. Practice it when nothing is at stake. Build the muscle, and when the real moment comes, your nervous system will already know what to do. Practice 3. The post-loss ritual. The third practice is what you do in the 5 minutes immediately after a loss, because this small window of time is where the seeds of revenge trading are either planted or killed. Most traders, after a loss, do one of two things. They immediately look for the next trade to make the money back, or they sit stewing in frustration, replaying the trade, feeling the injustice of it, building the emotional pressure that eventually becomes thumos, the rage we talked about in the last video.
The Stoics would do neither. After a loss, immediately after, before you look at another chart, do 3 things. First, close all your chart windows completely. Second, open your journal and write 1 sentence, what the trade was, what the planned loss was, and whether you executed according to plan. Not whether the market was fair, not whether you should have moved the stop, just did you follow the plan. Third, stand up. Walk away from the screen for at least 5 minutes. Get water. Look out a window. Let the cortisol from the loss begin to clear your system before you make any new decisions. This ritual does something specific and important. It creates a physical and mental break between the closed trade and the next one. It prevents the emotional residue of the loss from contaminating the decision-making of the next entry. Marcus Aurelius wrote, "The impediment to action advances action. What stands in the way becomes the way." The loss is not an impediment to your trading career, it is the path. The ritual is how you walk that path cleanly without carrying the weight of one trade into the next. Section 7. The close. Let's go back to Sarah. I want to tell you how the story ends. Not the version where she holds the trade and margin gets called. The other version. The version that becomes possible when she has practiced these things. The candle closes below the level. She sees it immediately. Her stomach tightens because she is human and losses still feel uncomfortable, and they always will. She feels the familiar pull to wait, to hope, to give it just a little more room. But she has written the contract before the session opened, in her journal, in her own handwriting. If price closes below this level, the trade is closed. She takes a breath. She applies the view from above. This trade, in the context of a long career, in the context of the thousands of decisions that will define whether she succeeds, what is this one moment? It is small. It is manageable. It is exactly what the plan anticipated might happen. She closes the trade. She closes the chart windows. She opens her journal and writes 1 line. She stands up, walks to the kitchen, pours a glass of water. She looks out the window for a few minutes, feels the discomfort of the loss without fighting it, lets it be there, and then, slowly, it begins to pass, not because she denied it, but because she faced it directly and did not let it become something larger than it was. 20 minutes later, she sits back down at her desk, fresh, clear, ready to look for the next setup, not to recover what she lost, but because that is what traders do. They trade. That is apatheia in action. Not a trader who feels nothing, a trader whose feelings do not make her decisions. The Stoic secret to cutting losses without hesitation is not a trick, it is not a hack, it is a practice, daily, deliberate, patient, of building the one muscle that almost no one in the trading industry will teach you to build. The muscle of doing the hard, correct thing in the moment when every emotion is pushing you toward the easy, destructive thing. That is what we're building here. That is what this channel is for. I will see you in the next one.